A brutal week 8 on the injury front across the NFL, including several wideouts whose seasons are over. Here's a look at some notable injuries from over the weekend. A tough go for the Houston Texans, who are already without Nico Collins. Stephon Diggs now done for the year after suffering an ACL injury in Sunday's win against the Colts. Meanwhile, Jags wideout Christian Kirk also out for the remainder of the season after he fractured his collarbone. Also, Packers quarterback Jordan Love adding himself to the injury list as he's day-to-day with a groin injury. We now bring in CBS Sports fantasy analyst Heath Cummings. As between buys and maybe injuries, week 9 could be brutal for some fantasy owners, but I want to begin things at the QB position. Questions surrounding namely Jordan Love, who Matt LaFleur said if he can go, he'll go. But for some fantasy managers that might not have the patience to ride this out, who are maybe some of your top signal callers to claim this week?
This is the one position where I'm not just settling. I'm actually excited to add a guy. And it's the same. It's got a common theme with last week. I said Bo Nix. Everyone said I was crazy. You know why? He was playing the Carolina Panthers. You know who's playing the Carolina Panthers this week? It's Derek Carr. Head coach Dennis Allen thinks he's going to be back this week. And as long as Derek Carr is back, I'm starting him with confidence against the Carolina Panthers. We already saw Carr face this defense once this season, 27 fantasy points in week 1. They've given up 20 or more fantasy points to all but 2 quarterbacks they've faced, including 34 fantasy points to Bo Nix last week. If Derek Carr is healthy, you're playing Derek Carr.
Yeah, that's 4 total touchdowns last week for Bo Nix, as you were just talking about, against that Carolina defense. So an opportunity to maybe have a bounce-back performance for this Saints team that's looking to get back in that win column. But maybe one of the most notable running back question marks comes at the 49ers backup yet starting running back Jordan Mason, who left the game with a shoulder injury. Maybe fantasy managers are already on alert given the 49ers are on a bye, but as is Najee Harris and the Steelers. But is there anything out there for maybe those who might be in need of running back depth? I don't know. This is why we're going to ask the expert here in this one.
No. There's absolutely nobody, not one player at the running back position ranked inside of my top 36 running backs this week is available in even 35% of CBS leagues. So, no, it's the worst running back waiver wire that I can remember. I've been playing this game for more than 20 years. I've been here at CBS. This is my 9th season. I cannot remember a week where we had such terrible options at the running back position. And so I will go with Justice Hill if you have to. And what we have seen occasionally from the Ravens is when they go up against a team that's really good at stopping the run, Kansas City Chiefs in week 1, the game can kind of turn into a Justice Hill game where they use short area passes instead of trying to run the ball with Derrick Henry so much. And that's kind of been the one thing that the Broncos have given up to running backs, 5.5 receptions per game for running backs against this defense. So again, this is not someone I want to add and start, but I understand a lot of people got a lot of holes in their fantasy rosters. And if you really need him, Justice Hill is the best option that's widely available.
Heath, I know we're talking waiver wire, but you talking about this running back position. Now, I want to ask you, what does this mean for maybe the value of running backs as trade deadlines are starting to creep up?
You know, it's really interesting because we've seen so many wide receivers move, and I think it's kind of a reflection of what we're seeing in fantasy as well. One of the reasons there's not that many options available on the waiver wire is because teams are really committing. The running back by committees kind of dying, and we're seeing teams commit to one back, and we've had a lot more injuries at wide receiver than we have at running back. So I'd really kind of be surprised. I know Chuba Hubbard was a name that was kind of mentioned as someone that might get traded, and the Panthers traded away Deontay Johnson and said, no, we're keeping Chuba Hubbard. The names you would hope that might get moved would be someone like a Khalil Herbert, who's kind of stuck behind 2 or 3 guys. Maybe Sean Tucker showed enough for Tampa Bay, who now has 2 running backs. But we're not really expecting much movement at the running back position.
Hey, you talked about injuries at that wide receiver position. I mean, in week 8, you saw both Stephon Diggs and Christian Kirk done for the year. We know DK Metcalf dealing with an MCL sprain, but whether there's a need for long-term at wide receiver or perhaps a matchup that's option-based, is there something there, at least at the wide receiver position, crossing my fingers?
Yeah, we're really looking at the Cleveland Browns, and my favorite option to add would be Cedric Tillman. Actually, the #1 wide receiver in fantasy over the last 2 weeks, that since Amari Cooper was traded away to the Bills, Cedric Tillman has scored more fantasy points than any other wide receiver. He's averaging 2.09 yards per route run over that stretch. His teammate, Jerry Jeudy, at 0.99. Tillman gives us one more week with 9 to 12 targets, and we're going to be viewing him as a no doubt about it top 24 wide receiver. I'm also interested, though, in adding Jeudy or in full PPR leagues, Elijah Moore, who actually led the team with 12 targets, scored 16.5 PPR fantasy points. The Browns are where it's at for wide receivers. Thank goodness for Jameis Winston.
Yeah, maybe could be that spark for that offense, seeing some production out of those guys. But Heath, a lot of fun matchups this week. But if I'm looking for a defense that could come up big in week 9, who would that be?
Yeah, I said it's not a great week at running back, and it's not awesome at defense either. But, you know, the Panthers are playing, so we could just stream the defense that's playing against them, especially when Bryce Young is starting. The Saints have been pretty terrible over the last few weeks. But again, you'll remember week 1, they were pretty awesome against Carolina because most defenses are. As long as Bryce Young is starting this week for the Carolina Panthers, I am starting the Saints DST.
It's almost beginning to become a no-brainer when it comes to whoever the Panthers are facing and who you've got on your roster who might be available. But Heath, I want to wrap up this conversation looking for someone who could maybe add some value to rosters. Give me your best sleeper pick that might be available in some leagues.
It's the Indianapolis Colts, and it's Josh Downs is the best one. And what we're talking about here is Anthony Richardson benched, Joe Flacco starting. I'm not sure if this is the right thing for the future of the Colts, but it's the right thing for the fantasy value of the pass catchers. We've seen the Colts throw about 10 more passes per game when Joe Flacco is playing quarterback. Also, he completes about 50% more passes than Anthony Richardson does. So there's just a lot more volume available for these wide receivers. We saw Josh Downs from week 4 through week 6 playing with Joe Flacco, top 8 fantasy wide receiver. Michael Pittman, who wasn't even in my top 48 at the beginning of the week, I thought we were starting Anthony Richardson, has moved inside of my top 36 wide receivers. And even Joe Flacco is a good sleeper. The Colts passing game, the sleepers of the week.
Oh, a couple of sleepers right there. And then also you talk about last week, Bo Nix being one of those names that could still be floating around. Jameis Winston, potentially another one of those quarterbacks that might be hanging out on that waiver wire if you are indeed in need of a quarterback. But also I want to ask you, and I know, again, we're waiver wiring surfing right now, but looking at that tight end position this week, I mean, National Tight End Day, we certainly saw maybe the awakening or reawakening of a number of tight ends. Can we say that maybe the tight end position is back on the map as we look ahead to week 9?
Every time we do this, we have a week where like 2 tight ends have 40 yards. We came into this year and it was supposed to be the best year ever for tight ends in the first month of the season. No tight ends did anything at all. So National Tight End Day was awesome. The position does look a lot better than it did 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I'm feeling really good about Cade Otton kind of holding on to his spot in the top 5 tight ends. George Kittle's the best tight end in football right now. Travis Kelce's back because all the wide receivers got hurt. The position is certainly looking better. If you need a streamer, someone like a Will Dissly or a Hunter Henry are there for you because we do have Kittle and McBride on bye, but I will not be saying that tight end is deep again because the position goes in the tank every time I say that.
Okay, so we'll hold off this time around because I don't know if it's whether you jinxing it or just being an off week for tight ends. Perhaps maybe we can get a little production here as we look ahead to week 9. As always, Heath Cummings, we appreciate the insight. Good luck this week. Well, if you want to dominate your fantasy leagues, make sure you join Adam Azer, analyst Dave Richard, Jamie Eisenberg, and Heath Cummings for the Fantasy Football Today podcast. Download and subscribe wherever you get your pods.